He didn't just slap her. He slapped her across the polished chrome table of the Galactic Council's chamber, a gesture so casual, so loaded with disdain, it made the air shimmer with tension. His tentacles retracted with smug precision, the scales along his arm glinting like cut emeralds under the chamber's artificial sun. "This," he hissed, "is how weak species are reminded of their place." She tasted the metallic tang of blood and fury on her lips, and for a heartbeat, she considered the diplomatic protocols drilled into her since childhood. But humanity had a different language for humiliation, and she spoke it fluently. Her hand shot out like a cannon blast. Not a slap of vengeance, not a gesture of pain, but a strike precise enough to alter the orbit of worlds. The alien staggered, ears whistling in panic as the force radiated outward, shaking the chamber, rattling the weightless ships moored in the orbital docks visible through the windows, and cracking the Council's centuries-old statutes into irrelevance. A single, human-powered gesture had redrawn the rules of interstellar diplomacy. The Council gasped. Tentacles froze mid-gesture. Crystals in the ceiling vibrated as if humming a note of pure terror. And then she spoke, her voice steady, ice-laced with contempt. "I think it's time someone taught you about consequences." For the next several minutes, silence reigned. Silence, in this chamber, was worse than war. The aliens studied her, their complex, multi-lobed eyes narrowing in disbelief. She didn't wait for approval. She walked straight past them, boots clanging against the polished floor, her coat trailing like a comet's tail. Outside, the city of New Terra shimmered beneath the orbital shield, humanity's crown jewel. Humanity was small, unremarkable by intergalactic standards. Its fleets were modest, its colonies sparse. But their influence, that intangible thing the aliens never understood, was growing like a shadow across the stars, quiet, subtle, and lethal. And sometimes, all it took was a slap. The alien she'd struck, High Chancellor Vreel, collapsed into his seat, muttering orders in a language so fast no translator could keep up. By the time the Council's translators parsed the commands, several fleets had already jumped from subspace corridors into defensive positions around human colonies, a defensive gesture that humans interpreted differently. Humans interpreted it as ready. Back on Earth, Admiral Callahan's voice rang through the fleet. "They want a demonstration? Fine. Let's remind them why humans never negotiate from fear." Ships streaked across the void, their engines burning like white-hot vengeance. But this was more than military response. This was artistry, strategy, and retribution woven into a single, terrifying display. The humans moved like a storm, elegant in their unpredictability, brutal in their efficiency, leaving alien commanders in open-mouthed horror. In the council chambers, the alien representatives whispered among themselves. Did you see that force projection? Impossible. That's human? Humans were never supposed to be capable of such calibrated aggression. They had underestimated them, as they always did. And humanity thrived on being underestimated. Meanwhile, the woman herself, Commander Arya Vance, stood atop the observation deck, staring at the stars. She could hear the hum of the human fleets aligning, feel the pulse of her people vibrating through the interstellar comms. She remembered the slap that started it all. That small, intimate act of defiance had unleashed a chain reaction she alone had known was possible. A galaxy built on assumptions and arrogance had just encountered reality. Her second-in-command approached cautiously, their face a mask of professional awe. "Commander, what do we do next?" She smiled, a smile devoid of warmth, but full of cold calculation. "We don't do next. We let them think they're in control while we reshape everything. One slap, one fleet, one planet at a time. Let them rebuild their borders. We'll redraw them in human ink." In the distance, a Vrelian warship spun out of control, caught in a gravitational anomaly induced by human engineers, an anomaly engineered to look accidental, to look like natural space turbulence, but anything but accidental. Each minor catastrophe, each coincidental failure, was a breadcrumb on a path towards something far larger, the realization that humans didn't just respond, they anticipated, they innovated, they punished. And they did it with a flair that alien psychology could not predict. Arya leaned closer to the viewport, watching the alien fleets flinch at the smallest signal from the human commanders. They were afraid. Not just afraid of being destroyed, but afraid of humans. Not because humans were strong, though they were, but because humans were utterly, irredeemably unpredictable. A soft chime indicated incoming communication. The hologram flickered to life, real, his voice trembling with something humans might call indignation, but an alien resonance conveyed pure shock. You cannot comprehend the consequences of your actions. Arya's laughter was dry, short, and sharp as a blade. No, she said. I can. And I'm about to show you what happens when you fail to respect them you underestimate. The transmission ended, leaving only the echo of her words, and a galaxy beginning to shift beneath them. Around her, the human fleet prepared for the first strike, but this was no ordinary strike. The first salvo would not be aimed at weapons. It would be aimed at pride, arrogance, and the very idea that a human could be dismissed. And when that happened, borders would fall, empires would fracture, and humans would sit back and watch, the architects of chaos dressed in civility. Somewhere deep in the Council's archives, historians would later note that it began with a slap. A simple, human gesture meant to convey insult, and answered in a language the galaxy could not ignore. For now, Arya just watched, silent and unflinching, while the stars blinked in and out around her like nervous eyes. Humanity had shown the first, sharp edge of what they could do when insulted. And this was only the beginning. The galaxy had assumed they were civil. They had assumed humans could be managed, contained, reasoned with. They were wrong. And soon, everyone would know just how wrong they had been. The first strike wasn't about annihilation. Humans didn't waste their bullets on gestures. It was about precision terror. Around the Vrelian colony of Korath Prime, orbital sensors flickered and died, one by one, like stars going out. Alien officers ran in panic circles, tentacles tangled, claws scratching at consoles as the human fleet appeared over the horizon, ships glowing like molten silver against the black. Admiral Callahan's voice boomed across comms, calm, almost conversational. You thought you could humiliate us. You thought a slap was weakness. We call it an RSVP. Vrelian defense fleets scrambled, but humans didn't respond in kind. They danced. The ships moved in unpredictable swarms, slicing between gravitational anomalies, using asteroid fields as slingshots, pulling maneuvers that defied classical physics. Each strike wasn't just calculated, it was theatrical. Each move mocked the aliens' assumptions about warfare, probability, and the predictability of a civilized species. In the capital chamber of Korath Prime, High Chancellor Vrel's tentacles twitched in panic. He couldn't finish. The humans weren't targeting weapons arrays. They were targeting morale. Civilian communications were intercepted, edited, and broadcasted back in twisted versions, messages of mockery and pride, laughter in the face of terror. Humans weren't just fighting, they were teaching. Meanwhile, on New Terra, Arya and her tactical council watched in grim satisfaction. Phase 1 is going perfectly, she muttered. Her eyes lingered on the holographic grid, tracking thousands of alien vessels reacting like cornered predators. Her hand hovered over the control console, not pressing buttons, not giving orders, just letting the humans they had underestimated move. Then, the reports came in. Korath Prime's orbital shields were collapsing, not from firepower but from a subtle gravitational resonance humans had deployed. Ships twisted in orbit, crushed by forces that looked like accident, but were anything but. Vrelian engineers scrambled to respond, muttering calculations too fast for even their brightest minds to follow. Humans had engineered the battlefield itself. A junior officer whispered, unable to hide a tremor in his voice. Commander, are they playing? Arya didn't answer. She smiled faintly. Humans always played. And when humans played, entire civilizations learned that games could be lethal. Back in the alien council chambers, panic metastasized. Ambassadors whispered in alarm. This species, this small, insignificant species, they've turned our entire fleet into puppets, and the strings are invisible. They didn't just respond, they predicted. Then came the unexpected twist. Just as the Vrelian fleets began to reorganize, human stealth pods appeared inside the colonies themselves. Not to destroy, not yet. To observe. To broadcast evidence of alien incompetence. The Vrelians watched in horror as human operatives infiltrated government centers, leaving messages, evidence, and subtle traps that caused entire administrative networks to collapse under their own weight. Every move was a slapback, not physical, but psychological. A transmission from a human field operative flickered onto the central screen of Real's command ship. The operative grinned, bloodied but unbowed. You know that thing you humans have? It's called pride. You might want to get familiar with it. Then the line went dead, leaving only the echo of human audacity. The alien fleets faltered, confused. Every attempt to predict human actions failed spectacularly. Every contingency had already been outmaneuvered before it was even conceived. And humans, of course, did it with style. One human ship performed a full retrograde spin around an orbital station, knocking it slightly off alignment, enough to trigger a chain reaction of alarms and power failures across the planet. To alien observers, it was chaos. To humans, it was fun. On New Terra, Aria's second-in-command finally spoke, voice tinged with awe and fear. Commander, they're collapsing faster than predicted. Entire planetary systems. They always do, Aria said, voice low and cutting. We're not here to destroy them. We're here to remind them why they underestimated humans. By the time this is over, every empire, every council, every strategist who doubted us will remember that human unpredictability isn't a flaw, it's a weapon. In the Korath Prime capital, Rio finally understood. It wasn't the human fleet that terrified him. It wasn't the skill of their operatives, or the speed of their tactics. It was the fact that humans expected nothing of consequence to happen, yet everything happened at once. They had turned the very laws of probability into instruments of terror. Real's final transmission, quivering with disbelief, hissed across the void. This cannot stand. Aria's laughter answered him, cold and unwavering. Oh, it will. Stand? It will rewrite itself. You drew borders, we redraw them. You claimed superiority, we claim the consequences. By the end of the first day, Korath Prime was a portrait of controlled chaos. No one human had died, yet the colony's defense and command structures were in ruin. The psychological toll on the Vrelians was incalculable. Their pride shattered, their confidence destroyed, their borders now meaningless against the shadow of human unpredictability. And in the midst of it all, Aria remembered the slap, the small, intimate defiance that started everything. One gesture of personal fury had grown into a lesson that echoed across light years. Humanity didn't just hit back. Humanity hit back so hard the galaxy itself felt the shockwaves. As night fell across New Terra, and the stars blinked indifferently, Aria leaned against the viewport, watching the alien fleets retreat into defensive formations, nursing wounded egos and shattered plans. Phase 1, she murmured. Complete. Let's see how they like the sequel. And the galaxy, slowly, began to whisper one name with fear and astonishment: humanity. The galaxy was learning a lesson it would never forget. Humans didn't follow expectations, they obliterated them. In the vacuum above Korath Prime, orbital debris floated lazily, remnants of alien pride and misplaced confidence. Human ships moved among the wreckage like predators savoring the hunt, but their targets were not what the aliens assumed. No weapons fired, no annihilation yet, just precise, surgical strikes against command infrastructure, orbital relays, and morale centers. Humans were teaching the Vrelians the cost of underestimation. Commander Aria Vance stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching the chaos through reinforced glass. Her voice carried calm authority, but there was a sharp edge beneath it, a tone the alien translators couldn't parse. Send the next wave. Subtle. Calculated. Let them think they're still in control. Her tactical officer blinked, trying to keep up. Commander, they. Predictable. Aria interrupted, smiling faintly. That's their first mistake. They think humans follow patterns. We don't. We improvise. We escalate. And we punish. Now move! Elsewhere, High Chancellor Vriel's council was collapsing under pressure. Tentacles trembled as advisors screamed at each other in a language humans could barely track but understood perfectly: fear. Contain them! One yelled. Strike back! Another demanded. Every command was already anticipated, already countered. Each attempt to regain control only played into human hands. The humans escalated next. They didn't target fleets, they targeted borders. With a mix of advanced terraforming drones and gravitational manipulation tech, humans began subtly altering planetary positions, rerouting satellites, and even shifting the rotational axes of minor moons. To the Vrelians, it was apocalyptic madness. To humans, it was art. A slap had become a full symphony of cosmic retribution. Then came the personal touch. Arya herself led a covert strike team onto Vriel's flagship, the Obsidian Throne. Not to destroy. Not to kill. To deliver a message: precision, humiliation, and inevitability. In the span of an hour, the team infiltrated the bridge, swapped command logs with doctored human intelligence, and left the Chancellor with a single, undeniable truth: humans were in control, even when it seemed they weren't. Vriel's shriek echoed across the fleet. This cannot be! How predictable you are! Arya interrupted coldly, stepping into his hollow presence. We've been underestimated since the day your ancestors first charted the stars. We're patient, we're lethal, and we never forget a slight. That slap? Consider it the prologue. The humans withdrew, leaving chaos in their wake. The Obsidian Throne remained intact, but its systems now subtly misaligned, its communications subtly poisoned, its crews shaken to the core. It was humiliation writ large. And the rest of the galaxy noticed. Across the outer sectors, neighboring empires whispered. The humans, they didn't even fire properly, yet entire fleets are paralyzed. They play with reality. Even more shocking, humanity's next move wasn't destruction. It was diplomacy, the kind that carried teeth. Arya sent envoys to nearby star systems, offering terms that seemed generous, reasonable, almost magnanimous, but every clause was a trap. Every alliance subtly rewired political loyalties. Every agreement placed human interests above alien pride, without overtly taking them. By the time anyone realized, borders had shifted, allegiances had fractured, and humans controlled the chessboard. And still, Arya remembered the slap. One moment of personal insult had escalated into a full-scale geopolitical upheaval. One human gesture had reminded the galaxy that while aliens measured power in fleets, in numbers, in treaties, humans measured it differently, in audacity, in intelligence, and in unpredictable will. Admiral Callahan's voice crackled over the comms. Phase 2 complete. They're spinning in confusion, but we've only begun. Shall we escalate further, Commander? Arya smiled ice-cold. We escalate until they remember one thing. Humanity is not a negotiable variable. Humanity is a force of nature. And the galaxy learned its first lesson the hard way: insult us, and we respond, in ways you cannot fathom. Meanwhile, the Vrelians made one desperate, final maneuver. A massive strike force jumped into the system, hoping to crush the humans before they could consolidate their gains. But humans had anticipated this. Ships that had seemed stationary months ago shifted instantly into intercept trajectories. Every ambush, every trap, every possibility had been accounted for. The resulting engagement was brief, brutal, and devastating. Alien ships were shredded before they could reach firing range. Entire squadrons disintegrated under gravitational traps. The Vrelian strike fleet didn't just lose, it evaporated in a matter of hours. Every surviving vessel fled in chaos, a trail of destroyed pride marking the human victory. In the aftermath, the humans did something no one expected: they offered mercy. Not because they had to, but because the humans chose to define the terms of victory. Arya broadcast a final message across the galaxy. High Chancellor Vriel, your fleets are gone. Your borders are meaningless. Your pride destroyed. We offer you a choice: submit to human terms, or continue pretending you could ever defeat us. Choose wisely. The galaxy is listening. And then silence. A galaxy-wide pause, filled with disbelief, fear, and the dawning understanding that humanity had rewritten the rules. Arya leaned against the observation deck's viewport, watching stars flicker in indifferent light. She murmured to herself, almost theatrically, "One slap. One fleet. One human instinct that never bends. And the galaxy bends anyway." The Vrelians would survive, technically. Their fleets, their people, their empire, but they would never recover their arrogance. Every council, every strategist, every general would remember the lesson: never underestimate humans. Because humans didn't just fight back. Humans redefined the battlefield itself, and did it with audacity, intelligence, and style. And in the heart of the galaxy, one woman smiled, knowing the story had only just begun. The galaxy held its breath. For centuries, borders had been carved in treaties, enforced by fleets, maintained by fear. Humanity laughed at all of it. Commander Arya Vance stood on the bridge of the Resolute, the first rays of New Terra's sun spilling over the horizon like a spotlight on the galaxy's new architects. Every move she had made, every fleet maneuver, every infiltration and psychological strike had led to this moment. And yet, it wasn't the fleets that mattered now. It was the principle. Humans didn't just retaliate. They reshaped reality to their will. High Chancellor Vreel's voice rang out one final time across the comms, trembling, alien scales shimmering in humiliation. "You cannot enforce this!" Arya's hand hovered over the comms console. Then she smiled, sharp and cold. "I don't enforce, Chancellor. We redefine." The first human strike had been a slap. The second, a fleet in perfect orchestration. The third, psychological warfare. Now came the finale. Humanity didn't need to destroy planets to assert dominance. They simply altered the political and logistical structures that supported alien empires. Supply lines were rerouted, communications subtly poisoned, minor moons shifted to cut orbital defenses, all without a single laser fired. Entire sectors recalibrated themselves around human priorities. Borders weren't just crossed, they ceased to exist in meaningful ways. In the Vrelian capital, chaos reigned. Council members argued furiously, their strategies unraveling faster than they could speak. Their fleets had been routed, their intelligence compromised, their pride annihilated. And through it all, the humans offered only one option: submission or continued humiliation. Arya's voice echoed across the calm. "You drew borders. We redraw them. You claimed superiority. We claim consequences. You underestimated one human. You misjudged a species. And now you live in the world we define." The Vrelians recoiled as they realized the truth. Humans had won not through sheer firepower, but by making every assumption, every expectation, every plan irrelevant. Every empire that had ever mocked Earth now recalculated their own fates, quietly acknowledging the inevitability of human unpredictability. On New Terra, the celebration was muted. Humans didn't need parades. Their victory was in the order of the cosmos itself. Fleet captains exchanged nods over secure channels, tactical officers smiled at charts that had never looked more beautiful, engineers whispered about subtle gravitational adjustments that made entire worlds more hospitable to humans overnight. Every move had been precise, elegant, and ruthless in its efficiency. Arya turned to her second-in-command. "Do you know what they'll remember?" she asked, voice low and steady. "That we're unpredictable," the officer replied. "No," Arya said, her eyes glinting. "They'll remember the slap. The moment one human decided the universe owed them respect. That small, personal defiance, one gesture, reshaped borders, fleets, and governments. That's how humans operate. We act small, until our impact is impossible to ignore." And then she gave the order that would cement the new galactic order, a permanent human presence in every critical sector, staffed not with armies alone, but with intelligence, diplomacy, and subtle control. A network invisible yet undeniable. Every alien power could fight, But the humans had already won the war of perception, and in the galaxy, perception was reality. High Chancellor Vreel, exiled to a minor moon, was left with nothing but memories of arrogance and the echo of a slap that had ended his career, humiliated his species, and rewritten the galactic map. And somewhere deep in the outer rim, other empires whispered warnings, cautious alliances, and nervous speculation. Never underestimate humans. Aria's final act was personal. She returned to the council chamber, now eerily quiet, and left a single message etched into the central console for history: insult to human. Lose a galaxy. She stepped back, boots clicking against the floor, and allowed herself a small, rare smile. For all the chaos, all the strategy, all the manipulation and terror, she knew one truth remained: humans didn't just respond, they dominated, with style, wit, and brutal effectiveness. The galaxy had changed. Borders had shifted, empires fractured, and the Vrelians, once smug and untouchable, would never recover. Humanity had asserted itself not as conquerors, but as forces of nature. And the lesson was clear, for anyone paying attention: one human gesture, one human decision, one human will, could topple worlds, rewrite history, and command the respect of the stars themselves. And somewhere, in the quiet corners of the universe, the smallest ripple of defiance, a slap, continued to echo. Humanity had not just survived humiliation. Humanity had weaponized it. And the galaxy would never forget.